Oh, just realized I was muted. Darn. Here we go again. Imagine your body as a spider web. Every aspect of your being is connected. If here's your spider web, here's your body, you've got your nervous system connected to your digestive system, connected to your immune system, connected to your endocrine or your hormones, connected to your mood. Everything is connected in this spider web. Why does this matter to you? Why do you care? I'm suggesting that you care because today's topic in Tune Into Your Body is choose. How you can choose everything, every day, every night, all week long to either promote health or to irritate your system. Every choice that we make in any part of our life, immune system, digestive tract, immune health, etc., any choice we make, because it's connected to everything, has potential ramifications like a domino effect. Before I go into this, that can sound really stressful. That can sound like, oh my goodness, every choice I make is so important, life or death. I'm not suggesting that. There are lots of naturopathic doctors and nutritionists out there who do say things that make me feel, and maybe some of you feel, stressful. Like if I eat this thing, whatever that thing might be, that maybe isn't the most healthful, easily digestible, highest quality, etc., that it's going to just do me in on the very spot. We are amazing, resilient creatures. And while I do believe that if I eat something, and I'm using food as an example because it's a lot of what I do, if I eat something that irritates me, if I do that too often, yes, I really feel the effects. However, if I am feeling fabulous and I eat something that irritates me a bit, my body is resilient. It might feel a little bit of the irritation. I might feel mild symptoms or maybe not. And my body has the ability, when it gets pulled out of balance, to rebalance itself and hang out in the middle again. So I want to make sure that as we're talking about choose today, that you don't find this overwhelmingly pressured and stressful. We are resilient, amazing creatures. And yes, we probably will feel much more healthy, much less symptoms, much more energy, much more strength, much more clear focus when we do things that align with what our body needs more often than not. And yes, we probably will feel more symptoms, pain, migraines, digestive disturbances, gas, bloating, mood irregularities, when we do things that irritate us more often. So I'm not suggesting that we have to be perfect, but I am suggesting that we make the choices that we know align with ourselves more often than not. So pause for a little station identification. This is Tune Into Your Body, my weekly webinar. I'm Dr. Wendy Lee White, licensed naturopathic doctor, nutritionist, and educator. This is the Tune Into Your Body series. We're exploring the 5 essentials for healthier everyday people. The first webinar that we did, and if you're registered, you can go back and listen to the recordings. First webinar we did was an introduction about the general philosophy of naturopathic medicine, my teacup analogy, which is a super important concept that also relates to when we're talking about choose today. That can also be found within my YouTube channel. That's drwendyleewhite.com. We'll give you a link to my blogs, my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, all of that. So the teacup analogy is an important when we're talking about getting kind of filled up with things that irritate us, potentially creating an overflow of symptoms. That was week 1. Week 2 was nourish. We talked about how food and hydration and supplementation can affect our health. Not just what we eat, but how we eat as well, giving us a preview into the nervous system piece, which will be at the end. Week 3 was on move. That is how and why and the effects of movement and the benefits that can be had because of movement. This is week 4. We're talking about choose. Today we will talk about sleep, clean living, so kind of minimizing toxin exposure, and then your setup of your environment and your rhythms. So those are the 3 things that we'll talk about today: sleep, clean living, and your environment. And again, the reason that these are listed is that our whole being is related. And if you can imagine, if we don't get enough sleep and we don't move our bodies and we're not eating foods that nourish us and we're getting exposed to an abundance of chemicals in our world, both in our home and our environment, you can imagine that we wouldn't feel very well, right? Many of us in our culture, in our country, let's even put it that way, are feeling the effects of not being well, of food that doesn't work for us, not enough movement or too much movement, depending on a person's physiology, chemical exposure, imbalanced immune systems, high levels of stress. We're seeing the effects. And those of us who are trying to live in more alignment with our physiology are having greater success in mounting responses when needed. So let's talk about sleep. When you don't get enough sleep, whether that's due to either not prioritizing sleep or struggling with sleep, right? Some people just don't allow enough time in their 24-hour calendar to get enough sleep. And others, even when they try, they struggle with sleep. So 2 separate issues, right? First one's much easier to solve. You just have to allow time in your schedule for sleep. The second one's much more challenging. Young children, hormone imbalances, lack of safety, all sorts of reasons why someone would struggle with sleep. That's where one-on-one visits come in. That's when the individualized medicine really shines. So why does sleep matter? Sleep matters because your body does its maintenance while you're sleeping. I did a whole radio show on this in Connecticut a few years back. See if I can find my Connecticut shows and the recordings and the transcripts, and I'll upload them maybe into my blog section of my website. So, sleep. What happens while you're sleeping? So much. Your memory and your critical thinking and the logical mental side of your being does its filing and memory sorting and making connections. And it does all of that things that your computer might do if you restart or reboot or shut down and give it a break. It does all of that. As far as your hormones go, when you are sleeping, your hormones do all the maintenance. So for example, the hormones that help to regulate hunger and satiety, hunger and fullness, are at least one of the main hormones is produced during sleep. And so there are studies that say if you don't get enough sleep, you're more likely to overeat outside of your body's need the next day. So think about that. For those of you who are really trying to be more aware of how you eat and why you eat and when you eat and what your body's cues are, know that when you don't get enough sleep, your hunger and satiety cues are dysregulated. They're not quite as helpful at really helping you learn if you're hungry and if you're full. And you're more likely to overeat, to eat more than your body needs the next day because it's confused. We are rhythmic creatures. Like, we're animals who happen to live under roofs in houses, many of us, gratefully. And so when we don't get enough sleep, our hormonal rhythms get altered. And so what this might look like, I have to sneeze. What this might look like is our stress hormone cortisol, for example. It biologically is highest at 8 a.m. It helps us get moving during the day. And then gradually throughout the day, it decreases so that by 10 p.m., it's at its lowest and your body is powered down and ready for sleep. When we alter our sleep patterns, we alter the production of certain hormones, not just stress hormones, but all sorts of things in our endocrine system, our thyroid, our adrenals. And so the more regular rhythmic sleep we get, the more likely our body is going to get high quality sleep and good rhythmic sleep. And also the hormones and everything in our body that is cyclical in our 24-hour clock is going to function more optimally as well. We need more sleep in times of high stress. So if you're feeling lazy in this time of COVID right now, cut yourself some slack. Your nervous system is on high alert. It is observing those around you. Are they sick? Are they sick? Are they sick? Are they sick? Oh, I don't know. Our nervous systems are doing a lot of work. Even when we think we're managing and we're not going outside, we're staying home, we're walking our neighborhoods, our bodies are still aware that there's a very unknown threat in our environment that it's not sure if it needs to respond to or not. You might find yourself being very keyed up one moment and then very overwhelmed and want to curl up in a ball and hide in a corner and rock another moment. Not that I'm speaking from experience at all. And so cut yourself some slack. You might find that you do indeed need more sleep now in this time of stress, hypervigilance, unknown, than you think you need. Well, I'm just working from home. I'm just hanging out, fill in the I'm just whatever. That's okay. Be gentle with yourself. If you find you're needing 9 or 10 hours of sleep instead of your normal 8, that's okay. Your body will do better if you can give it what it needs. My husband and I have stopped setting alarms in the mornings. Except Tuesday mornings I teach at 8 a.m. and Thursday mornings I have a 7 a.m. networking meeting. Occasionally he has a 7 a.m. meeting with India. But when we don't have first thing meetings, we just let our bodies wake up on their own so that we know we can increase the chance that our bodies are really getting the sleep that they need to increase our overall well-being. Remember, our body is a spider web. Everything is connected. So when we get enough sleep, it affects our ability to be aware of our body's needs for food the next day. When we get enough sleep, our immune systems are more able to mount an appropriate response. When we get enough sleep, our circadian rhythms are reinforced and our hormone balances are more likely to be found. So don't minimize the choice of getting sleep or not. Now, I introduced this sleep concept with the idea that some people just don't prioritize sleep, in which case, okay, I'm suggesting after this webinar that your take home is that you really carve out, whether it's 10 to 6, plus or minus an hour, 9 to 6, 10 to 7, whatever it is, carve out that 8 to 9 hours so that you can get the adequate amount of sleep that your body needs. For those of you who struggle with sleep, there are a lot of supports we can put in place that really are lifestyle based. And then there are also supplements that we can introduce that are supportive. There are dietary habits we can look at. And all of that is really discussed more in the realm of one-to-one patient visits. So let's also, today is Choose in our Tune Into Your Body webinar series. And so we're talking about things that you can choose that might be health promoting or irritating. Sleep, clean living, and an environment are three of the things that I'm going to talk about. So let's talk about clean living. When I say clean living, again, let me take a step back. As I introduced this, I talked about the fact that I have no expectations of perfection, that we are all human, that we can see the pendulum of our being kind of swinging, right? So if we get too exposed to chemicals, we might have some symptoms, and then our body kicks in and says, whoa, let's detoxify that. Let's come down to middle. And so this balance point is really where our body likes to be. It's where it feels best being. And as long as we don't overwhelm our body too much, too often, then even when we get pulled out of balance, we will come back into balance because our body is resilient. So that applies to clean living. I do suggest that we minimize chemical exposures. Now, this can be within our home and external. So from an external perspective, that's where we look at trying not to live in a city, although I live in Portland, Oregon. Many of us live in cities, so we have the toxicity that's around that. Regularly spending time in the woods, by the water, by the shore, are ways that we can increase the fresh air and the lack of toxins exposures as often as we can. Another thing to consider is the exposure to pesticides and synthetic hormones that might come from conventionally grown produce, conventionally raised animals if you're a meat eater. And so doing all that we can financially and emotionally to minimize those chemical exposures through purchasing different products, purchasing organic, purchasing natural, purchasing biodynamic, minimizing those chemical exposures. Why do you care? Or why should you care? Why am I suggesting that you should care? Many of our pesticides that we get exposed to through our food chain are nervous system toxins. They alter all of the good bacteria that live in us, which makes us vulnerable and our immune system out of balance. The more that we eat non-pesticided foods, the more likely we are to have healthy gut bacteria, healthy digestive tract, healthy immune system. Again, since it's all connected, it's all connected. So you're looking at your environment, you're looking at the pesticides or insecticides or herbicides that are maybe used around you. Ask questions about your public parks, your children's playgrounds. Are they spraying for pesticides so that there aren't any bugs, or are they spraying for herbicides so that there's no dandelions in the field? What are you getting exposed to? What are your children and your pets getting exposed to? Another option for clean living and minimizing your chemical exposure would be the idea that all of your personal care products, your shampoos, soaps, cleansers, gels, mousses, makeup, deodorants, toothpastes, read the ingredients. And if you do nothing else from this webinar, when you disconnect from this webinar, go visit EWG.org, the environmentalworkinggroup.org. They're a nonprofit, and they look into everything environmental. If you're wondering if your toothpaste is safe or if your deodorant is safe, you can go to the Skin Deep database that is part of EWG.org, and you can look up and find out, are there any ingredients in there that are known and linked to cancer, or that are known to be linked to neurotoxicity or toxicity to your nervous system. This, by the way, has some of my raspberry shrub in it that was made 2 weeks ago with apple cider vinegar, raspberries, hibiscus petals, rose hips. It sat for 2 weeks and I strained it a couple days ago, and this is my first time drinking it, so cheers. It's just apple cider vinegar with all sorts of vitamin C and yumminess in it. So check out EWG.org. and look at their Skin Deep database for all your personal care products. Now, you might be thinking, why does it matter if the product that I use once a day has a little bit of something in it? And in the big picture, if that were the only exposure you had to a little bit of something that might be a nervous system toxin, again, we're resilient, right? Probably not a big deal. But if you use shampoo, conditioner, toothpaste, facial moisturizer, deodorant, that's kind of a minimum 5 every day for 30 years, and all 5 of those products have potential nervous system toxins in it, that's when I get concerned. That long-term regular exposure from many different sources. So if we use the Skin Deep database, we can look at finding a safer option for each of those products that may have been containing ingredients that are potentially doing you harm. I'm not suggesting we all use products that we dislike. Find safer options that work just as well and just begin to replace your personal care products. I love Beautycounter. For those who follow me know that I'm a Beautycounter consultant. I just shared a post on Instagram this morning about a fabulous sale that they're having. And they are a personal care product company that is not only safer, but have effective high-performing products. They have skincare as well as cosmetics. I tend not to wear cosmetics, and for those of you who are cosmetic wearers realize I have none on, but I do use their skincare, and I do find it luxurious and like, I don't know, food for my skin. I digress. I do love Beautycounter as one of my choices for safer personal care products, but they are not the only choice, but they are one that I do trust, and it is woman-owned. So for clean living, we talked about the world outside, we talked about your food supply, we talked about personal care products. The last thing I'd like to mention in the clean living section and minimizing your toxicity is the idea of the cleaners that you use in your home. Now, EWG.org also has a bunch of variation of white papers that can help guide you to what cleaners are safer than other cleaners. And again, I'm not suggesting we use ineffective products. I'm suggesting we use products that still work, that are safer for us. So many safer, more natural products, and safer and natural don't always go hand in hand, most of the time, but not always. Typically will be vinegar-based, have essential oils in them, have maybe natural surfactants from coconut. They're less likely to have a conflict when you mix them and create toxic fumes. So do check out environmentalworkinggroup.org, EWG.org, and look into different ways that you can choose to minimize your toxic exposure so that you minimize your likelihood of cumulative, chronic, over time effects that you don't want. This is Tune Into Your Body. This is the episode on choose. We, in this series, are talking about healthier ways of being in this world that you can do every day, that don't have to be hard, that don't have to be torturous, but that can really make a big impact and a big difference on your health, your well-being. And because your body is this big spider web and everything's connected, anytime you make a choice in chemical exposure, that could affect your nervous system, your hormone level, your gut bacteria, your digestive function. Every choice you make has this spider web or this ripple effect or this domino effect on all parts of your being. The third topic I want to talk about today is your environment. And I don't mean the environment like is grass around, is trees around, are there pesticides around, but like the environment even within your home, how you set up your life, your little micro life. So what's included in that? What does your schedule look like? Are your days spent packed back to back to back to back with obligations and meetings and activities and There's really no wiggle room for any flexibility or any, you know what, I don't feel well today, let me take it easy. So I'm suggesting that we all control our lives to the greatest extent that we can. This is an incredibly privileged statement. I hear that. I am incredibly privileged that I can control my life, that I don't have 2 young kids at my feet right now, that I don't have 2 jobs that I'm trying to balance. I don't have an elder in my home that I'm also caring for. So I understand that when I'm suggesting that we design our schedules, that not everyone has that privilege. But if you do, I'm suggesting that you take advantage of that privilege and design your schedule so that it matches your values. What do I mean by that? If family and the environment are the most important to you, do you have a garden? Are you spending dedicated time with your children or your partner or your family members to live out that value system? So our environment is our schedule, our daily rhythm, our ability to respond flexibly to what we need any given day. The people that surround us are part of our environment. Are we looking to nurture our relationships with them? Are we mindful of who we do surround ourselves with and who we limit our exposure to because they're not good for us? Another part that matters in your scheme of life is your amount of clutter in your space. Now, of course, you can see maybe 6 feet or so behind me. You can see the art, you can see the lavender on the wall. What you can't see is my desk, mostly neat and tidy, or the bookshelf in the corner, very, very full of books. It's a habit. But my point here is that the more we surround ourselves with A, things that we love, and B, not too many things that, again, our nervous system is just like, nah, look at all this stuff, and we can't move and we can't flow, then that can lead and leach into all other areas of our lives as well. So let's recap. First of all, this is Tune Into Your Body. I am Dr. Wendy Lee White, licensed naturopathic doctor, nutritionist, and educator. And this is my weekly webinar, replacing my old radio show that I used to have in Connecticut. And this weekly webinar is just to help introduce you and everyday people to 5 essentials that I believe help promote health and decrease symptoms. The 5 are Nourish, which is where we talked about food and hydration and supplementation. Move, movement, why and how. Today is talking about Choose, the fact that we are a big spider web and every choice we make tugs on a string that links to everything else. Nervous system, digestive tract, immune, mood, everything is all connected. So when I talk about lifestyle medicine, which is what really I do, that's why I do it. It's all connected. If your immune system's super upregulated and we can't really treat it because it's so hyper responsive, let's come in the back door and talk about supporting your digestive tract to help soothe your immune system so that when we can circle back around it to treat it when it's less twitchy. So Choose is where we are today. We've talked about sleep, clean living, minimizing toxin exposure, and setting up your environment, your little micro environment of your day-to-day world in a way that's health promoting rather than irritating. That's where I'm going to leave you today. Please do share this with loved ones, share this with friends, ask them to register. Everyone needs this information. This is a super stressful time right now. There are a lot of unknowns, there are a lot of uncertainties. We want our immune systems to be functioning in tip-top shape. We can do that by not only supporting our immune systems, but supporting ourselves in all other choices: sleep, movement, emotions, chemical exposure, toxin exposure, decluttering to help us feel more grounded and centered. We can support our immune systems through the back door of all the other things that are connected within our bodies. Next week, we will talk about connect. We will talk about why relationships with yourself, loved ones, and something greater also have an effect on health. Then we will wrap up this 6-week series with balance, and we'll talk about the nervous system and how that is connected, again, to all aspects of your being. Please do subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Please like if you are watching on Facebook. Please comment anywhere you are. Let me know that you are here. Let me know that you are paying attention, that you like this information, you're finding it helpful, you'd like to hear more, and what you'd like to hear more of. I'm perfectly happy to take suggestions for future webinars, as well as blog posts and video posts and things of that nature. Share with others. We all need this. We need this information right now more than ever. We are amazing, human, resilient beings. More people need to have faith in our design, and living according to how we're designed doesn't have to be torturous. It can just be mindful. Thank you for joining, and hopefully I will see you next week. Have a great week.